It's happening again, and despite Jacob Fowler proving himself at every single level, he's still getting doubted by a lot of outlets. But today, one Habs legend spoke about Jacob Fowler and what makes him great. We got to dive into everything that's going on around Jacob Fowler. Plus, Byron Baders released his recent prospect rankings for the whole NHL, and Montreal ranks very, very highly. Plus, a very interesting note on Mattias Norlinder's contract situation. You thought you were done with him? Not yet. So stick around with all that coming up on this episode of Habs Digest. We're going to start with Mattias Norlinder, Jesse. This is interesting because, I mean, he was gone. He was as good as gone. We were ready to just say goodbye, Mattias Norlinder, but a recent article from TV Aspal, well, they kind of revealed a bit of interesting information. Let me just show you. In the early summer, this is, it says Canada. This is just default browser translated from French, because I didn't want to put the full French. Anyway, the Canadiens didn't make an offer to Mattias Norlinder, but according to his agent, Claes Elefalk, he told the Swedish media of Aftonbladet, I think, that his client had received an offer from the Habs and that he would make a decision on his future by next week. Jesse, this is really interesting. I mean, look, he's not the Norris Linder that we once hyped to the moon and back, but he's still not that bad a player. He could easily still play in the AHL, and this to me seems like it's a bit of an interesting situation where you can maybe get him at a cheaper price that you release him once. If no other team comes knocking, you can sign him for a much lower contract, and maybe that helps the Habs out a little bit in terms of their logjam in the AHL.
Yeah, that's it. We thought that Kent Hughes was done for the summer. We thought he was out of the kitchen, but it seems like they kind of pulled him back in. And
yes,
this is totally par for the course. Like with Mattias Norlinder, it's like we're really high on him. You know, one of our best defensive products, the young Swedish defenseman, and then kind of falling out of graces. But then he has a good camp with the Habs, only to really not be able to kind of put it all together at the AHL level. We know that there is that offensive skill there. Still just 24 years of age. So again, this is a move where it's like, okay, we don't have too much to lose. Can he still be part? We don't want to give up on him completely. Is there some type of role that we could get him in the AHL with maybe at a slight kind of reduced price? Now, he's going to be weighing this out of whether this is the best for his future. If you still want to have those hopes, you know, you have to feel like if he's able to do something with the Rocket this season, the way his careers just went up and down, like for all we know, he could get himself in those good graces. But of course, we know how many prospects the Canadiens have. We know that it's definitely stacked. Maybe his prospects would be better served going to Europe. That being said, still a young man. We know that the talent's there.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, man, it is so recent that he had that unreal camp, and we were questioning, wait, could he make the Habs? And no, of course not. And he ended up having a pretty lackluster season. But you're very right, Jesse. Like, look, I've seen a lot of people online kind of saying, who's the Habs? I know we can say whoever the 7D are that we want on the main roster, but a guy like Norlinder is the kind of guy, you get an injury, you call him up, and you don't totally mind if he's a healthy scratch for a bunch of games and just a spot start here and there. He kind of feels like that type of guy, because you don't necessarily want to do that and take AHL reps away from a guy like, say, if Mailloux and Reinbacher are both down there. So maybe that could be a role that Norlinder fills at a cheap price, but who knows? It's a very interesting situation, though, and we'll definitely keep you up to date on what comes next for Mattias Norlinder. But we're going to transition into the second topic of the video. And honestly, Jesse, every time I see the Habs prospect rankings, it's almost surreal to me to see how high they are ranked. And Byron Baders, well, as you guys know, Byron Baders has a lot of great, fantastic stats. And recently, he did his full NHL prospect rankings. And there was actually correction because he forgot to add the Askarov trade. But this graphic I'm going to show you is after he made that adjustment. So let's just show it here. This is NHL team prospect pool strength rankings for August 2024 by Hockey Prospecting. Full credit to them and Byron Baders, of course. And Jesse, Montreal is ranked at number 2, just behind Anaheim. You actually have San Jose at number 3 overall, which I thought was really interesting. San Jose is at number 1 in a lot of different places, but no, they have Anaheim ahead of Montreal. Their goalie ranking is really helping them a bit. But Montreal, Jesse, has the 3rd best skater ranking, 4th best top 5 NHLer rank, 4th best top 5 star rank, and they have, what is that, 3rd best depth NHLer. Montreal's good at everything across the board, though he ranks the goalies a little low, and we're going to get into that in a little bit, but pretty unreal that some metrics here are having the Habs even above the Sharks in terms of prospect pool. It's just doing so many good things for my heart and soul watching this team go into next season.
Yeah, Baders doing really good, showing them how it's done on this list.
That's right.
For the most part. And if we're looking at this, like a very similar with the Ducks, we're better than the Ducks or pretty much the same in every category except goaltending, where we're ranked at 18th, which then just subsequent makes us kind of go to that second spot. So we don't want to split hairs, but we're looking like a number 1 prospect team if we're showing that love to Fowler, which we're going to get in. I think that we deserve to have that ranked up a little bit higher because we have such a well-represented group, as it shows in this graph. Like, we have it all. We have the star talent, we have the depth, we have the defense. It's just obviously, and we have the goaltending, maybe just ranked a little bit lower than it kind of should be there. But all these reasons to really be excited about this team. One thing that's going to really serve us well in the future is that we definitely have the best prospect ranking in our division.
Mm-hmm.
Not only are we kind of doing better in our rebuild and like probably at an Ottawa Buffalo level, I think in terms of competition, arguably maybe even higher than them this year. But then we have all these prospects so that we can then keep inserting into the lineup. This is what separates us from many of those teams where we're now getting in this competitive window, right? Like much more competitive than I think what the Ducks will be this year. Obviously, Chicago. That being said, San Jose. But while still having all these prospects to really come in, all these young, great players already on the lineup. So I think that that's really what's going to be so key for the Habs going forward.
And I think that's something we brought up when we were looking at the pipeline rankings, how good Montreal's roster is in terms of talent already, not to mention them having arguably, easily a top 3 prospect pool in the NHL, if you ask us, right? No matter which way you cut it, I think they're top 3, at the very worst, top 5. So that kind of combination can be very dangerous for the future. But yeah, shout out to Byron Baders. Great work. Of course, no bias here. Montreal's second. I think it's great work. Montreal's low. I think there's some questionable things. Hey, it is what it is, but at the same time, really great stuff. So super fun to see Montreal up high. But Jesse, as we mentioned, there's one little gripe we had with that. And it's something that we also mentioned the other day. Now, this comes with some crazy Fowler praise that we're going to get into. But to get into the praise, we want to dive into these people starting to doubt him first. And then we're going to get into why I think it's not deserved. So we see the Habs goalies being 18th on this. Yes, I know maybe they don't have the depth of goalie prospects. I mean, we still have Volokin, who I think is quite good. We have Vic Vanigs, who could be okay. Dobesh is still doing really good in the AHL. And Jacob Fowler. It's not necessarily star-studded, but Fowler himself is so good. We saw in Corey Pronman's rankings, Jesse, he had Fowler as the 11th best Habs prospect, not very far above even Volokin. Stuff like this. This is that was for the Athletic, but another thing from the Athletic had Fowler at one point third behind only Wallstedt and Askarov, and that was also this offseason. So the inconsistency is there. Before I get into what Scott Bowman had to say about Jacob Fowler, Jesse, I know during his draft interview, his thing was I keep getting doubted again and again and again, and I keep proving myself, and the Habs brass said he just keeps winning. Is this happening again? I think it is happening again, and I think he's about to prove everyone wrong.
And that's exactly it. And for sometimes certain players, they just don't get that respect until they can almost do it at that NHL level. Almost similar with Lane Hudson, where he has done just everything that you could ask from him in college hockey, broken all these records, as Fowler has done, broke so many records this year in the NCAA for his age, but yet don't quite get the accolades, right? And there's always just a knock of whether it's the size or this and that. But the thing is that's why you almost are rooting for this guy in Fowler, just because he's done so much. And then again, you just see with that ranking, for me, having Fowler in our group, even if we got some other depth guys, that's a start. That should just shoot up our ranking right from there. Not only just for his track record, right? His save percentage really just speaks for itself at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I got his stats here, I think. Let me just bring it up there. I mean, that 926. Look, I know Dobesh had a similar college season, but the Hockey East is, I would say, the toughest conference to play in the NCAA. You could argue otherwise, but I certainly think it is. 32-6-1, setting that wins record. Absolutely insane. But I think he's getting slept on by some and hyped up properly by others. But one guy that gave him a lot of real praise recently is Scott Bowman. Canadiens goalie prospect Jacob Fowler impresses Scotty Bowman. He's an exceptional college goalie, Hall of Fame coach says. I saw him play a lot on TV. What I like about him is he tracks the puck. He goes on to say that he doesn't know much about goaltending, never had to do any coaching, but Jesse, he is, one of, if not the greatest coach ever, right? So anyway, there's a bunch of great stuff about Scotty Bowman, but he says it's impressive when you see a goalie and he's not flopping all over the place, but is moving wherever the puck is going. He said Ken Dryden was like that. Price was like that. That's why they were good goalies, even going back to Glenn Hall, and I think that's a great point. I think people love to jump to that flash. Marc-Andre Fleury, amazing goalie, one of my favorite players of all time. But sometimes his flash is jumping around constant. He was still amazing, but he was never necessarily that big number one superstar that carried you to a cup. He could still bring you there, but sometimes he got overshadowed a bit. The thing is, with people love to watch him though, right? And he's an amazing player, but I hate to put him down because that's not what I'm trying to do. But what I'm saying is a guy like Fowler doesn't jump off the screen at you. If you're analyzing his movements, maybe, but he just makes saves, Jesse. It's like what the Habs said, he just wins. And I think that kind of thing there, not being flashy, might have him a little lower than some other people. 6'2", whatever, needs to lose some weight, as some people say. I don't even necessarily think he does. I think he's doing great as it is, and tracking the puck, like Scotty Bowman said, is one of the more underrated things in terms of goalies, and it's something that Jacob Fowler has down to a T.
Yeah, let the big boy be for sure. And it's a solid point. Like, I think a lot of us grew up with like Dominic Hasek, loving his game, a little bit more of that,
He's an
I don't want
outlier.
to say like loose, sort of fluid type of game. But there's a lot to be said in the quality of play now. And again, like what Scotty Bowman's talking to is like so many players in front of the net where it's so hard to track the puck and not kind of be flopping around when these passes are getting whipped around. It's so hard to have poise, have a solid positioning. And like Scotty Bowman, he knows a little bit something about winners, and winners like to know something about other winners as well, for sure. So it's like, this is a guy who's won 9 Stanley Cups, a record, 5 with the Montreal Canadiens. And when he's comparing Ken Dryden and Carey Price to Fowler and saying that they had this puck tracking, positioning ability, he knows what he's doing. He knows the words that he's saying. So again, Scotty Bowman, most winningest head coach in hockey history. These guys that know how to win games, they tend to kind of gravitate together and they know, okay, this guy has what it takes at the end of the day. Scotty Bowman loves hockey. He's watching college hockey all the time. So when a player like, a head coach like this rather, really sees something in Fowler, I think it's all confirming what we all knew.
Don't take it for granted, guys. Jacob Fowler's about to prove everyone wrong again. For those who are doubting him, let's just watch him win again, like he seems to do every single season. But let us know what you think about Jacob Fowler. Is he getting disrespected? Is he getting too hyped? He seems to be all over the place in people's rankings, and we'd love to hear from you down in the comment section below, because that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoy, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Thank you all for tuning in every single day. Even when we're moving around, we're traveling, stuff, videos come out, and we really appreciate you guys sticking with us. I'm Josh Gosse, for my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.